This is important news for anyone who bought a car on HP or PCP finance between April 2007 and November 2024. The regulator has just announced its planned redress scheme, the biggest one we've seen since PPI. Of the 32 million car finance agreements in that time, 14 million were likely missold according to the regulator and are due a typical payout of £700. And what really made me raise my eyebrows is that actually the way it's going to be paid out is by far the simplest form of redress scheme we've seen, never mind for one of this scale. So let me talk you through it in detail. This is actually a consultation, but in reality it's the regulator setting out what it wants to do, and it has to by law allow a consultation, but it's unlikely to change apart from at the edges. The consultation closes in November. The redress scheme is likely to start in early 2026. Now it's interesting that it's going back to car finance deals to 2007. That one was in the balance. Firms were trying to make it start later, but the regulator has pushed hard, and I spoke to the boss of the regulator a few moments ago and said, for us, that was a principle because this is the law. So I'm pleased to see it's going back that far. There are three categories of car finance mis-selling in this. One of them I've talked about a lot, two I haven't, so this may well be new to you. Now, all of them rely on non-disclosure. In other words, you weren't told this was going on. If you were told, which is very rare, then you generally weren't missold. Let me go through them step by step. The first one is the big one. Discretionary commission arrangements, DCAs. And this is where it was hidden that the dealer effectively was getting more commission because you were charged a higher interest rate. And because you didn't know about that, that's deemed as unfair. I mean, the problem here is you still won't know if it happened to you. The only way to find out, and this is what my template letters on Money Saving Expert do, is write to the lender and say, did I have a discretionary commission arrangement? That's 11.4 million arrangements. By the way, I should say the total number of these is going to add up to more than 14 million because sometimes you are in more than one category. The next is where the dealer was contractually tied. In other words, it said, we'll go to a panel of lenders to find you the best car finance. But in reality, one firm had first dibs, and if it wanted to give you car finance, that is the deal that you were given. That is 3.2 million cases. The third one is unfairly high commission, and that's 2.9 million cases. This is where the amount of commission was both over 35% of the total cost of the credit and over 10% of the amount that you borrowed. If both those things add up, then it's just seen that is a distortion of the market and you were charged too much. So those are the three cases. You'll know about the first one. The other two may be new to you. That means you may be owed money that you didn't think you were in the past. So how much are they going to pay out? Well, the regulator has done a market assessment of how much you were effectively hard done by because of the perversion of the market, because of the fact that these things existed. And what it said is it will be roughly 17% of the interest. So for every £1,000 of interest you were charged, you will get back £170. And that's been done on an average. It's not a case-by-case basis. So some people maybe will be worse off because of this. Some people slightly better off because of this. You could say it should be more, but I think that's balanced by the fact of how easy it will be for most people to get their money. There is a way to go more militant. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, that's going to apply in all three cases with one exception, which will be extremely unfair high commission. If the amount of commission on your loan, and this only applies to 13 or 14,000 people, was over 50% of the cost of credit and over 22.5% of the total cost of borrowing, then you'll be given commission based on the Johnson case in the Supreme Court. Don't worry about that. Effectively, you'll get all the commission and the interest paid back, so you'll get a lot more money back. There's only a small amount of people. So what do you have to do? Well, this is where I say it gets easy. If you have already put in a complaint, and that complaint means you were missold under those categories, once the redress scheme launches, probably in January or February next year, the car finance firm will have 3 months to write to you and tell you you're included in the scheme, and then you will automatically be included by doing nothing. You can opt out of it. Once you opt out, you can't opt back in. But if you don't do anything, you're going to get your money. Why would I opt out of it, you may ask me? Well, you might opt out of it, for example, if you wanted to take a more militant approach and take the lender to court, hoping that you will get more money. Now, I'm going to be mainly focusing on the standard FCA redress scheme, but I want you to know that that is available to you. I mean, it's for people who know what they're doing, or people who probably want to use a law firm or a claims management firm who will take a cut of what you get. I would not be touching one of those firms if I'm just going through this scheme, because this scheme is a near automatic payout. But in that very specific example, if you want to go to court, then you might want to use a claims management firm. If you haven't automatically complained, well then, the firm has to look and try and identify all the people who are missold under all these categories, and it needs to get in touch with you within 6 months of the scheme. But then you'll have to opt in. So you'll have to actively say, I want to be a part of this and I want to get that money. Now, in my view, and I asked the boss of the regulator when I was talking to him about this, in my view, in most cases, it would be a lot easier if you were in the I've already complained category, which means you probably want to put in a complaint now so that you're in that category by the time the redress scheme starts, if you were missold. To do that, well, you don't want to use a claims firm, because why would you give the money when it's going to be easy payout? We have a template letter on Money Saving Expert at the moment, but only for discretionary commission arrangements. My team and I will be working in the next couple of weeks of doing that for the contractually tied system and the unfairly high commission system as well. And so you'll be able to complain at that point. And then once that's done, if you do have a case, well, you'll get the money without doing anything once they write to you. Couple of questions people ask me here. The first question I get is, what if there's no information? What if they can't track me because it's too long ago? Maybe it was 2010, 2009. Well, that's going to be difficult because often that information is destroyed. So then the onus will be on you. Have you got any proof that you had a car finance deal at that time? I'm saying an old credit reference file that includes it, an old bank statement that includes it, or a form where you have ID that you were paying them. If you were, that could be enough. What they'll then do is probably look at, was that firm systemically doing one of these categories to people in your situation at the time? And if so, it's possible you will get a payout. But if it's very old and you don't have any documents and the firm has deleted the documents, then it's going to be difficult. So those people who are nerdily kept all their files from a long time ago, you're going to be the ones who's going to be most successful in that case. Final question I'm asked, I went through a claims management firm, and now I'm going to get a payout without them doing anything. What can I do? Well, there's a news story on Money Saving Expert about this we put out a couple of days ago. The two regulators, which is both the financial regulator and the solicitors regulator, have said, while they can charge a cancellation fee as long as that was in your original contract and up front, if they're not doing anything, they shouldn't be charging you for work they haven't done. So it should only be a proportionate fee to the actual amount of work that's been done. And if you're getting an automatic payout, that should be relatively small. So you might want to make a cancellation to the firm and say that you won't be paying them this money or only a proportion of this money. And if they disagree, well, you could then take them to the Claims Management Ombudsman, which is part of the Financial Ombudsman, or if it's a law firm and regulated that way, the Legal Ombudsman. Okay, that is my big picture explanation. But please remember, this is my first read of all of this. I'm just trying to give you a heads up of where we are. We're going to publish a lot more details on moneysavingexpert.com over the next week or so, and then template letters in a week or two. So make sure you get the weekly email so I can notify you about the MSE weekly email. And I'm going to be doing a podcast on this on Thursday. So if you've got any questions, I'll put out a note on social media and you can ask me questions that way. And I will try and go through it all. That'll be the Martin Lewis podcast that's available in all good podcast places and BBC Sounds on top. Not that that isn't a good podcast place, but you know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, I hope this helped.